Today on my first concert. Isn't that once in a while you have that mismatch? Didn't Jimi Hendrix open up for the Monkees at one time?
We missed that show by 2 jobs.
Oh, no.
When the Monkees played here the first time, Hendrix was their opening act.
That's crazy.
And he quit. He quit the tour two dates before they played here.
Oh, boy.
And one of the reasons was when he did Foxy Lady, all the little girls in the audience were going, Foxy Davy!
Neal Bond is one of Minnesota's premier sources of music in the state, and we're welcoming him to the podcast this week of My First Concert. Dave Lee back again with you, along with music producer, our buddy Davide Rosso, the private Basel, Switzerland. Davide, good to have you back again.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
And it's brought to you by AquariusHomeservices.com from the AquariusHomeservices.com studio and by Star.Bank, which is our bank here at Talk North. And Neal, welcome to the show. Appreciate your time here.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay. I'm very curious. I mean, you're a musician. You write about music. Your Minnesota Music History channel on Facebook is unbelievable. But for you, what was your first concert?
Wow. You know, I saw everybody from Hendrix at the Auditorium to Led Zeppelin at the Guthrie, to Joplin at the Armory, to Bruce Springsteen at the Guthrie, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
But I had to do some really quick thinking. And my very, very first concert was when I was 5 years old.
But you remember it.
I do. My mother took me and my 2 brothers to the Indiana State Fair, which was about 2 or 3 blocks from where we lived, and took us to go see Gene Autry.
Gene Autry, yeah.
Wow.
Gene Autry. And I'm sure I had my little 6-shooter scarf and cowboy hat on. But I'll never forget it because for my very first concert, I got to see one of my cowboy idols, and I had the wonderful experience of watching him from the rear all night, and he never, ever turned around to wave at the people in the back.
So what was the stage? Was that in the center, or?
No, it was in, where they have horses and whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And so there were seats that were behind him, and my mother was not one to get the good seats. So, but yeah, I was pretty excited, and I even got to hear Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Oh, man.
In the middle of August. So,
yeah, isn't that crazy? But wasn't that a number 1 song?
Oh, yeah.
And it probably was the number 1 song probably that time of year, I would guess, too. Huh?
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it was quite the concert. And I've never seen Gene Autry since. Never seen Roy Rogers, who I would have loved to have seen.
Oh, boy, yeah.
But that was my very first concert. And, of course, like I said, I've got a laundry list of best concert ever was Bruce Springsteen right after Born to Run came out at the Guthrie.
Okay, I want to ask you about that. At the Guthrie, which was, I know Elton John, when he was here doing his final show, allegedly, he brought up the fact that he played the Guthrie years ago, and I think people may forget that now, that what a place to play to listen to Springsteen. But tell us about that show.
Well, they had 2 shows. I had just bought the Born to Run album, and the only reason I bought it was because he was on Time Magazine and Newsweek
I remember that.
the same week.
The same week, yeah.
And I thought, they always bring good shows into the Guthrie before these people really break out. And that was the first time, I saw, like I said, Zeppelin there, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, a ton of acts there. Usually people at the old Guthrie had respect for the place.
Yeah.
They might stand up, but they'd sit down. At the Springsteen show, that was the days when you had chords, but they had the chords out. He and Stevie Van Zandt were on either side doing a battle of the bands type thing. I swear, first time ever at the Guthrie, people were standing up on the seats and jumping up and down. That, bar none, was the best concert that I'd ever seen. And to be real honest with you, he did a bunch of material that I'd never heard. I'd only heard the Born to Run album, and I was amazed that the earlier material was, I thought, far superior to the stuff that was coming out then. But it was a great show.
How was the sound in the Guthrie with Springsteen?
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah,
it
probably
was
doesn't get
always
better.
great. It was always great. I remember going to see Blood, Sweat, and Tears and was very, very disappointed that the guy that started the band, the guy who produced Leonard Skinner, I'm losing his name now. He wrote the book Backstabbing Bastards about his career in music. But he had been with the Blues Project, and I'd been following his career since then. All of a sudden, I show up at the Guthrie, and he's not playing with the band.
Oh,
wow.
And I'm going, oh, man. They had this guy by the name of David Clayton Thomas that took his place. And it took me about 40 seconds going, wow.
Yeah.
And Blood, Sweat, and Tears became one of my favorite bands after that. I mean, even more so than when they did Child is the Father to the Man.
What about Zeppelin at the Guthrie?
Zeppelin, I can tell you stories about that. Zeppelin showed up at the Guthrie, and their PA system didn't work.
Oh, no.
So I don't know whether you remember White Lightning or not. They were a three-piece band at the time with Zippy Kaplan and Woody Woodrich and Mick Stanhope. And they had released a thing that everybody in town thought was the Cream playing. Anyway, they were there, and Jimmy Page was out going, what are we going to do? And he goes, you guys can use our PA. So they actually used White Lightning's PA system.
Led Zeppelin did.
Yeah. And it was very good. I mean, the sound quality, they're deafening as it is, but the sound quality was definitely there. I don't know if you know Dale Strength from...
I do know him. I actually worked with him too. Yeah.
I had bought tickets, and I bought a set of tickets for Dale. We'd been doing some shows with Pepperfog up in Duluth. I said, Dale, don't forget, tomorrow we've got Zeppelin at the Guthrie. I called. No Dale.
No.
Oh.
And I'll never forget bringing it up years afterwards. And Greg Enhofer, I'm sure you guys know Greg. Yep. Greg goes, you have got to be kidding me. You didn't go to see Led Zeppelin at the Guthrie?
The Guthrie of all places, yeah.
And Dale goes, yeah, I must have just...
Oh, boy. That's a lifelong one right there. You just made me think of something here, Neal, and I want to come back to it in a minute, so I want you to think about this. But you mentioned the sound system and Led Zeppelin using White Lightning's sound system. I want to ask you about when the Cream showed up here in town, over by, we're on Nicollet right here, and so I'll be straight down Nicollet where the old Kmart is being torn down, right? So I want to ask you about that in just a minute, because there was something to do with the sound system and Cream, and I know their manager. By the way, again, if you're on Facebook, go to the Minnesota Music History Channel. That is Neal Bond's page, and it is so much fun, and it's one of those pages. I will tell you this, if you're going to look at it, just give yourself some time, because you probably won't stop looking at it. Just great memory makers in there, great stories, great knowledge. And we'll have more with Neal here in just a second. I want to thank our friends at Star Bank for making this possible today, for all of your business lending solutions or whatever you're looking for. They got great people over there, just super folks to help you out. And they're a family business. They've been started here in Minnesota with one bank, and now they've got 10, including right here in the metro. When you get a chance to visit them, maybe you'll have an opportunity to meet Harry or Andy or Katie or some of the others that make it a great place to do personal banking or business banking for that matter. But they're creative, they're friendly, they're responsive to Star Bank customers and their ever-changing needs, which we all are well aware of. By the way, quite impressive in supporting the growth and development of the communities which they serve too. And you'll see that when you just drive through some of these towns that they're in. But we all have a variety of needs. I know that. They'd love to help you. They're in person, which is cool because they'll remember you, and I'm pretty sure you're going to remember them after you walk out. And, of course, digitally as well, which we all like to use in our banking. But a visit to one of their banks is not a bad idea. So I'd get to know them. They'll remember you as well. They keep doing banking the way it was meant to be, business or personal. And, yes, they actually answer their phone calls when they come in with a live human being. There's something novel. So call Star Bank today or online at star.bank. Loans are subject to a loan application and approval. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender, and they are our bank again, as I mentioned, at talknorth.com. Neal Bond has taken time to join us here from the Minnesota Music History Channel on Facebook. Okay, Neal, you know what I'm talking about. Ginger Baker or George Baker. I want to ask you about that, too. And then the Cream, as opposed to what we all called them, just Cream. But they made an appearance here in the Twin Cities, which actually is kind of still talked about.
You know, I was working at Magoo's, which was part of the New City Opera House at that time. And I'll never forget the, neatly made poster.
Yeah.
They classified it as the dream battle of the bands with the Cream and the Litter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was at that show. It was packed. Sunday afternoon, I remember the Cream showed up really late. The Litter in hog heaven.
Oh, they had to go longer, right?
Yeah, so they quit. You got to go back on, guys.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And was Cream big at the time?
Cream was huge.
Okay.
I mean, they
right in their
were
prime.
They had released their first album.
Okay.
With Sunshine of Your Love. They hadn't come up with Wheels on Fire yet. But they were huge. I remember being real excited about it. I don't know the full story. However, Jean Anderson, if you know Jean, and if you come to our site, you're going to see a lot of things that she's done. She interviewed Denny Waite, and according to what was going on when they got there, they assumed that this was going to be like Orchestra Hall.
Like an opera house in Europe.
Yeah, and so when they came into this little teenage nightclub, first of all, they saw strobe lights, and they said, absolutely not. Those don't go on or we're quitting. And they didn't want to play. And according to what Denny Waite from the Litter said, they had gone over, the road managers had gone over after the show to imbibe in whatever party favors they might be having at the time. And they said that, okay, their manager said, if you don't play, we're going to get sued. They said, okay, we're going to play, but we ain't singing.
Protest.
So I don't know what happened. They opened up with Sunshine of Your Love. And the PA system was really crappy. All of a sudden, you heard this big explosion. The Litter offered to give them their PA. Nope. And anyway, they jammed they had to play 45 minutes. By contract. And they jammed for the next 35 minutes. And the bulk of it was a Ginger Baker drum solo for 25 minutes of that. So if you were going there to hear their first album,
No.
It wasn't there. But it was a very cool experience, and I'm sure nothing that was ever duplicated anyplace else.
Did their manager say anything different than that?
Okay, I put together a video, if you check out my channel, with some of the bands that played there. The Castaways did, Denny Waite, the whole thing. Denny said that they told them the story of what happened at the thing. According to Denny, no encore, and at the end of the show, Ginger Baker took a big slug of beer and blew it out all over the audience. So I don't know. They might have been on,
who knows,
whatever, but I don't remember that. But I do remember their road manager on the video went, "Rubbish, complete rubbish. We wouldn't have associated with some small little local band, and we certainly wouldn't have gone over to their house after playing." And he said, as far as what he said, spewing the beer out over people, once again, rubbish. And as far as us playing or not wanting to play there because it wasn't like a deluxe theater, they don't know where we played when we were over in London, which we played joints that were a lot rougher than that were. Mm-hmm. So that was his take on it. I don't know. I know Denny Waite pretty well, and I don't see any reason why he would be making a story up on it. And they used to have the Litter, they were the first punk acid rock band, if you want to call it that. I mean, they had light shows and they destroyed their equipment on stage. And whenever somebody came to town, like the Who,
right?
The Who played with Herman's Hermits.
Yeah.
Okay, talk about a mismatch, but they were at that show, and I know 3 of the members of the Who went over to the house for that when I was over at the party, so I know that happened.
Yeah.
So, but they would usually, if somebody good came to town, but Herman's Hermits didn't get an invite.
Isn't that once in a while you have that mismatch? Didn't Jimi Hendrix open up for the Monkees at one time?
We missed that show by 2 jobs.
Oh no!
When the Monkees played here the first time, Hendrix was their opening act.
That's crazy.
And he quit. He quit the tour two dates before they played here.
Oh boy!
And one of the reasons was when he did Foxy Lady, all the little girls in the audience were going, "Foxy Davy!"
Okay, and the Monkees were red hot at that time, weren't they?
They were.
But yeah, Hendrix opening up just seems. But you said you saw Hendrix was here a few times. Did he, Neal? Did he at the end? Did he like burn his guitar or do something with his guitar in the show?
Yeah, he would light it on fire. He played it with his tongue.
Man, I remember seeing him on was it Mike Douglas show or something years ago? I'm really going back in time here. But he seemed like the nicest, most humble guy in the world. Just super talented. But he acted like he didn't, it's nothing. But he didn't. Well, you saw him do that on stage.
Yeah, he was. Matter of fact, I thought he was playing with his teeth, and I took my guitar and I broke my tooth.
Oh.
It's his tongue, you dummy.
Yeah.
What about the venues around here, some of the classic venues? Was there one that you liked better than the others? Obviously, Guthrie is the Guthrie. But any others? Of course, there's been so many places bands have played through the years.
Right down the road where Rupert's used to be, the Home Bar. I love the Home Bar. I was only 18, but the drinking age was 18.
Right. Yeah.
And all my friends played there. They used to have a guy that would do, in between the bands, would do the Munchkin voices and would actually do a version of the Wizard of Oz with sound effects in between.
My.
Really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
New City Opera House, loved it. I worked in their miniature golf course. So
Was Cream the biggest band that ever played there?
Santana played there before they did Woodstock.
Oh God.
Them with Van Morrison.
With Van Morrison, yeah.
I'm not sure whether Van was with them. And,
At
I've
that
heard
point.
varying stories on that. But Zephyr with Tommy Bolin, they were unbelievable. Cold Blood, Lemon Pipers.
Did you, because of the mini golf course, did you get in free to those?
Yeah.
Very nice.
So
the
it was
perks
cool.
were good.
The perks were excellent. And I love the Carlton Celebrity Room as well.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Boy, and they had everybody there. They even had a Monkees reunion there.
Wow, I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
Am I thinking of a different band? Weren't the Monkees?
Davy Jones, Michael,
Yeah, but weren't they like
Peter Tork, who
all the
of course-
people playing on the records?
They didn't play. Well, that's the only album that they played on was a total bomb, and it was actually causing them. They had a band behind them called the Candy Store Prophets,
Oh, okay.
and Neil Diamond wrote a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
But then they performed.
Yeah,
Well, they were a
performed.
TV band, right? I mean, they were auditioning.
Right, they were like Milli Vanilli.
Mickey
and
Dolenz and
Strange story. Stephen Stills was originally going to be a monkey
oh
Come
wow.
on, I didn't
before
know that.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and he was the guy that got Peter Tork into the band. But when he found out that none of his material was going to, he was with Buffalo Springfield at the time, and he's going, man, I can sell a zillion records like Ricky Nelson, knowing what that type of exposure could mean. And he bowed out. Peter Tork took over. But originally, Stephen Stills was going to be one of the Monkees.
wow, that is a great story. Because Peter Tork was at Carlton at one time, and then his brother was a running back for the Packers, Eric Torkelson, I think.
Yep.
I remember right. So, anyway, wow, Deep Track. Yeah, the Monkees that was an early teeny bopper band for sure. But yeah, TV made. So you had the classic venues. We talk about those. Was there a place in town that you like going to the best?
Boy, I would have to say my favorite, it would have to be the Home Bar. I mean, I would hang
As
out
you
one.
said, yeah.
All of my friends went there, and it was all filled with musicians.
Just the place to
Dave
be.
Wagner from Crow. And I knew everybody in the spot because I was promoting concerts up in Duluth, Minnesota, with a guy named Skip Goucher, Tri-State Enterprises. And another interesting story on concerts, okay? A friend of mine, or an acquaintance of mine, we used to book different dates together on national acts. I brought Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes to the Duluth Armory. $1,000. He goes, they get $10,000 in Florida, but you got us on a bargain date. Anyway, Scott Johnson was another promoter. He handled like Rochester and southern Minnesota. And anyway, he says, Neal, I've been drafted. I've got 2 shows booked. He had just brought, I think, 4 seasons into Rochester. He says, I've got 2 shows booked, and I'm going to camp. There's nothing I can do. Will you help my wife? And I went, sure, So the first of them was the Young Rascals, right after, not Felix, but the conga player.
Yeah.
He had just left the group, so this was his first show with the new conga player. In the contract, they said, the opening act can use our PA system, and we'll charge them $150. Well, I'd hired left it up to me. I hired the litter. Now, if you can imagine the litter, and this was screaming Mark Gallagher litter. This wasn't the early, punk. Anyway, they blew them off the stage. They provided their own. Jim Kane ran Freedom Electronics, so he provided the PA system for them. 2 weeks later, I've got Eric Burden and War, which I thought, oh man, this is going to be great. So I never bothered to look at the contract. I just, okay, show up.
Sure.
Where's the PA system? This is a Sunday afternoon.
Let's go to Walmart.
Yeah. So I called Jim Kane up. I said, can we use your PA? I know that's powerful enough. We're in Chicago, can't do it. So I called every band I knew in town. Crow was the opening act, which is, I don't know whether you know about their manager.
No, I don't, but they just went into the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Their manager was a bit of a unethical type of guy. Anyway, I had them hired for $1,500, and Eric Burden and War was supposed to get $3,500. He calls me up. He said, well, we're bigger than Eric Burden and War is. Just because we're a local band here, nationally we're a bigger band. I want $7,500. I'm going, okay, I think we'll pass on that. And I hired White Lightning to be the opening act. And anyway, I scrambled around. Every musician that I knew in town all brought their PA systems, and we patched something together. It was a good thing that there was only 2,500 people there, because if you were in the back of the auditorium, it was like, kaboom, kaboom, Dave Wagner goes, Neal, can I tell the people to come on up? I'm going, well, nobody's here, so yeah, why not? Fire marshal went bonkers. He's gone, all right, we're going to stop the concert if you... I'm going, there's nobody here, and, it was like $350 to $550 for the seats. So.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Anyway, we got all that done, and it worked itself out.
Wow.
But
Wow.
on both of those concerts, Scott's wife made maybe $150 after the bands were played. So they weren't real successful concerts, but they were great shows.
Oh, gosh.
That I can say.
Yeah. Well, there's a bottom line for the musicians, that's for sure. Neal Bond, one of our great Minnesota music historians. And anyway, you can go to the Minnesota Music History Channel when you get a chance on Facebook. There are all sorts of great stories, and I'm sure there's something, pardon the expression, that's going to strike a chord with somebody, because there's concerts from a long time ago. There's a great piece on Stan Getz back in probably the 50s, I would guess, be performing here in town, and then, all the way up till today. So take a look at it. We'll talk some more here in a minute. I want to thank our friends over at AquariusHomeservices.com for making this all possible. By the way, I was just over there last weekend for the open house, talking to Jeff, who I've known since he started this business, and they do some fantastic stuff over there at AquariusHomeservices.com. Whether it's your water, the Connecticut water, which is one of the things when you think about your house, you need to do home improvements. I'd get to that water like first, because you're going to be drinking a lot of that, using it, and they know how to make it safe. The one thing I did want to mention, too, we get into spring storms, and I know south of us there were some heavy-duty storms again last night. We'll get our own share, I'm sure, but Aquarius Home Services has you covered there, too. They have their top-notch generator installation services now. So ask them about that, because you don't want a Minnesota storm to leave you in the dark. They'll make sure your fridge stays cold, your sump or your well pump keeps running, and your lights stay on. But best of all, they offer a free consultation on that, so you can help find the perfect solution for your home. They're so good. I've used them for well over 2 decades. I really enjoy working with them. They're great people, and it was a huge turnout at that celebration last weekend. So just great stuff from really good people. Aquarius believes in earning the right to be recommended. You'll learn that in a hurry. And they're just a click away at AquariusHomeservices.com. Well, we talk about some of the, just getting back to the some of the other acts, Neal, but and I mentioned, Stan Getz, but gosh, Ramsey Lewis Trio was here for, I think there was a run of 4 nights at one time. I mean, there's some just Hall of Famers here in the early days.
Oh, yeah. The Depot downtown had...
Yeah, there's another one.
My old partner, Skip Goucher, was one of the people that started that. We did some stuff up in Duluth with Tri-State Enterprises, but I guess it didn't work out for him there. But, yeah, they had spectacular bands. I mean, they had, they even had Tiny Tim.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course, he married a Minnesota girl, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. There's a great piece I read on your Facebook page from, and I was looking at May in particular because we're in the month of May as we do this. But back in 1972, and I still am, like many others, huge Creedence Clearwater Revival fan, the original band. I just thought, and Fogerty I thought was so talented. They performed in town, but wasn't it shortly thereafter that then everything fell apart for them?
Yeah. When they performed here, I think they had Tony Joe White at that show.
Oh, yeah.
They did do a job at the Minneapolis Auditorium, and they had the Litter open up for them. And the Litter blew them off the stage.
No fooling. Wow.
They, as a matter of fact, shortly after them, said, we want that band taken off the tour. They're
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're getting all the ovations, so. But yeah, Creedence Clearwater was something else.
Yeah, it must have been a fair amount of infighting because it was. I mean, 72 is when they busted up after that.
Yeah, and never played together again. And when they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, Fogerty refused to play with them.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Let's move forward to 84. Michael Jackson was here, 3 nights?
Yeah.
And that was that the Bad tour?
The Bad tour.
And what was that? What was the fervor like for that one?
They sold out all
Did you
3
go?
nights. I did not. My brother-in-law went. He took his daughter and said it was absolutely the most spectacular show that he had ever seen in his life. And that's what some of the comments have been about it. I saw Michael with the Jackson 5 in Colorado, and they had barbed wire.
Barbed wire.
What?
Barbed wire in front of the stage so that the little girls couldn't go rushing the stage. They played here at the Met. I don't have the date on the top of my mind, but when they played here, they had the barbed wire because I knew a gal that went there. They had the barbed wire, and there wasn't more than 600 people. Colorado, they were sold out.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The barbed wire at a concert there is something I hadn't thought about.
Well, I'm not sure what's worse than the chicken wire, like the Blues Brothers, or
I think the chicken wire would be a better deal than the barbed wire, having worked on a farm for many years. And when I mentioned Stan Getz, and Davide, of course, produces a lot of jazz and works at the jazz station here in town. They appeared at a place called The Flame. Was The Flame pardon the expression again, but was that like a hot venue?
it was, it was back in the 40s, it was jazz.
Yeah.
Okay. When Texas Bill Strength came to town, they converted it into, I guess, kind of the country western capital of Minnesota. I never got to go there. I've heard stories. I was always too young to drink. You know, I heard Kit Kahn was one of the primary investors there. But they had, they had everybody. They had Jerry Reed. A guy to talk to about that, Sherwin Linton. He used to play there all the time.
Sherwin, sure, from South Dakota.
Yeah. And but Texas Bill Strength used to run it. He used to do all the booking for the place. That's Dale's dad.
Okay.
So
So that it started out as a jazz venue, and then it got transformed into, it's like almost like a CBGB in New York.
Yeah.
So there's a country club, and it became the icon what's now today.
It used to be when they were having jazz, they called it the Club Carnival.
Okay.
So I'm not sure as the Flame how much of the jazz type of stuff they had, but it used to be the Club Carnival, and I mean they would bring huge acts. They never got anybody the size of Sinatra. Prom Center had Sinatra though.
Oh, yeah,
Back
there's
in
another
42.
place, the Prom Center.
I love the Prom Center. As a matter of fact, I put I take that back, 7 5 to 15-minute documentary pieces based upon Gene Anderson's research. And that was a venue. I remember going to see the Outsiders there, Question Mark and the Mysterians.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to see the Byrds. When the Byrds were at the peak of their popularity, they were there. But I mean, they had everybody in terms of, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, Stan Kenton,
Who's who?
Spike Jones.
The Prom Center, what was the ticket price to get into a lot of those shows? I mean, now I look at, we were talking earlier about $600 tickets to go see Springsteen, for example. I think the Eagles are up there. Well, who isn't for the most part anymore? I wonder if back then, of course, if a ticket was $2 to $6, it might have been expensive. But $600 seems like that might be extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
Did you save any ticket stubs, by the way, through the years?
I usually get those from other people. But, yeah. Buddy Holly, 6 nights before the tragic Fargo thing, played the Prom Center. Also played the Cato Ballroom on the tragic winter tour.
Yeah. We had on this podcast earlier our good friend Bob Becker, who I knew for years, who then was known as Terry Lee. He was one of the bands along with Bobby V that played for Buddy Holly. But what was interesting about Bobby Becker's his real name, but about Terry Lee is he was the first guy to hire Dylan out of Hibbing in Fargo to play keyboards because he needed a keyboard guy, and then Bobby V needed a keyboard guy, so he called Terry Lee and says, "Hey, I got a guy here that can play the keyboards if you're needing." And he was, then his name was Elston Gunn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he and Bobby remained close over the years. Two obviously opposite.
Yeah.
One guy a pop idol and the other guy the king of the underground. Okay, but they remained close, and I know. The last time when he played Parade Stadium, he had Bobby out in the audience and he sang Susie Baby for him.
Oh, how cool is that?
So, they did remain close over the years, which is kind of a cool thing.
Were you aware of Dylan at all in the 60s when he was over at the University of Minnesota?
I moved here in 65, so
okay,
I
so
would
you
have
would've
been
made the
2
switch.
years behind the... But I do remember Minneapolis Auditorium, Bob Dylan was playing a Friday night. Well, back then, nobody bought advance tickets. You'd go to the venue and buy it. It wasn't like... So I plunked down my $350, and they said, we're sold out. I went, oh, man. I drove all the way down here. But I guess the band played with him that night. I mean, he did have an electric band. I don't know whether it was Robbie Robertson. I do remember going to the Minneapolis Auditorium. Why I went, I don't know. It was a Sunday afternoon, and they had Frank Sinatra. Well, my interest in Frank Sinatra at that point was like, I want to go hear Cream or, when I'm Hendrix or, But, I went, I want to say, so I'm saying it now, I want to say that I got to see Frank Sinatra before he dies.
And?
So I went there, and the guy goes, Yeah, I went by myself. I said, he said, I've got seats, but he said they're a city block away from
Oh,
the
boy.
performer. And they didn't have screens and, you know, like,
No.
I'm going, I don't care. Just give me the ticket. And I went in. And it was kind of cool.
Yeah, you saw him.
It's a better memory than it was a performance. But,
Yeah, that happens sometimes. That's for sure. The our guest is Neal Bond, and again, I would advise you strongly on Facebook to go to his page. The Minnesota Music History Channel is what it's called, and there's all sorts of stories. You know, I was just thinking too. One of the fun places to go Christmas time was always Dayton's 8th floor.
oh, yeah.
Loved it, but they had performers up there now and then, didn't they?
Dionne Warwick, the Yardbirds.
Yardbirds in the 8th floor Dayton's.
Yeah, and they had Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton with the band at that point.
Oh, God.
Lou Christie, Lightning Strikes Again. Spanky and Our Gang, The Association, and Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, wow.
Wow, huge acts.
Yeah.
Was it? Did you go to shows there at all?
You know, I didn't. My friend over here, Steve, did. He was at the Yardbirds and several of them. They were in the afternoon on Saturdays, and I think I was more into sports. At
We were
that
talking
point.
about that a couple of weeks ago, and we were wondering who were the guitar players
Yeah.
at that time.
Well,
Now we know.
because our buddy Bill Shear, Billy, of course, was with Fabulous Armadillos and Johnny Home Band, and
Yeah.
Billy's with us. But he talked about the Maple Lake Pavilion in Mentor, Minnesota, and the Yardbirds apparently must have been going up to Winnipeg or something. But they stopped and played
Yep.
at the. I mean, that's
That
crazy.
was their Minnesota tour.
Yeah.
So was the sound good there, Steve? And it was good in the 8th floor.
It was.
God, just yeah. No, I don't think I ever heard music in there outside of the Christmas music when you went up to see all the
The
displays.
Who also played there.
The Who played on the man.
Wasn't was it Page or was it Jeff Beck that was playing the guitar with a bow on Over Under Sideways Down?
Jimmy Page used to play with the bow.
Okay, yeah, that was
That
cool.
was Page and back.
On your Facebook page, you've heard from a ton of people with interesting stories. I mean, every day's kind of fascinating for you, isn't it? Anything in those notes ever surprise you and catch you off guard? Going, I didn't know that.
all the time.
All the time.
I'm curious what made you thinking of setting a page like that and kind of like starting to document all of this?
8 years ago, I decided there's a company in town, Denny Johnson, and his partner, Tom Campbell, had all of the 60s bands, and they've documented. It's called minipal.com. I would definitely recommend, if you're into anything that happened in the 60s, going to their page. Well, I wanted to go, I guess, a little bit further. I would promote their stuff, and of course Gene Anderson's stuff with all of the concerts that were out there. And I just wanted to be a fun place for people to hang and find out all kinds of information that you either didn't know or forgot. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, just chatting earlier about the name of the show, My First Concert, whether you're a music hound or not, whether you're a musician or not, almost everybody I've encountered can recall, if it wasn't their first, among their first. And even when they say, yeah, I don't remember, but I guarantee you if there's four of us in the room and the fifth person, they're not into it, and they'll say, well, yeah, I did see Paul McCartney or their first concert. It's amazing. Music is obviously, as you know, therapeutic. You're still playing, though, yourself.
oh yeah. We just, a year ago, put out, and we worked for 3 years on the project. We tried to document the history of Minnesota from the early Voyager days until current. And it's called Legends, Heroes, Ghosts, and Gangsters. And I'll share a little tidbit of information for you. Okay, obviously you knew Dillinger got shot up in St. Paul, Minnesota. One thing you probably don't know is that Judy Garland from Grand Rapids was at the same theater the night that Dillinger was gunned down. And she'd seen him in the papers. She thought he was a movie star. She asked him for his autograph. 30 minutes before he was shot, she got Dillinger's autograph.
What a story!
Wow.
And that's in the
movie.
film. That's not
film.
in the that's not in the album. But that I've got her actual interview with that, and
How do we see the film?
you can get it on YouTube. We've had over 20,000 views on it, but
I'll bet.
you can get it up. We go through everything. We tried to kind of be hooky. I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but St. Paul was, when Minnesota became a state, the governor was from St. Peter. He wanted to move the state capital down there. Well, there was a Frenchman by the name of Jolly Joe Rollet, who had very colorful character. He used to come into town. He would ride on a dog sled 350 miles to the legislature.
Oh,
And the year that they tried to pass this through, it had 70 miles to his journey, and he's gone, so he stole the bill. They actually passed the bill. He was one of the sergeant of arms, got the bill, stole it, went into a brothel.
yeah. Who doesn't do that?
Yeah, went into a brothel, and the reason that St. Paul is the capital instead of St. Peter was because of him. So one of the songs there is called "The Night St. Peter Became St. Paul," and it's kind of a funny tune. And chorus goes, "Pig's Eye's Ghost." Pig's Eye was a moonshiner that was kicked out of Fort Snelling because all the officers were showing up late and drunk. So they're going, "You got to get out of here." And that's how St. Paul was founded. So kind of goes into the roots of alcohol in the city. Pig's Eye's Ghost was laughing the night Minnesota shivered. There's whiskey barrels floating down the Mississippi River. The plans, the schemes, and all the things were all going to fall the night St. Peter became St. Paul. And it goes through it's kind of like a banjo, banjo type thing. It's not folk music. I mean, it's complete orchestration, rock and roll. We go through Pillsbury, James J. Hill. Doug wrote a song on there called "The Man with a Plan." And we even ended up with Legends, Heroes, Ghosts, and Gangsters, where we kind of tell the whole story over again if you didn't listen from the beginning.
Can I bring up, too, the fact that you are displayed in the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame?
Why not? I'm blushing here. We had a CD release party at the Sports Page in Bloomington. We had a lot of people attended. Brian Gensches from Badfinger, we both had that. And as a matter of fact, we premiered a song where Dale and Bob Strength actually did a song with their late father, kind of like Hank Williams. So we had all this there. In the interim, 2 weeks later, Hall of Fame induction. I'm I'm calling my partner. I'm going, "Doug, they can't buy this in the stores. What's the problem?" There was some problem with the artwork or who knows what. Anyway, CD is not even officially released other than the fact that you can buy it online with us or whatever. Go to the Hall of Fame induction, and John Cass, great guy. Go, Johnny, go, one of the greatest record store dealers who's forgotten more about music than I know, okay? But he's working down at the Hall of Fame, and I got him an advance copy of it. And a T-shirt like this. I got to get you one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What size?
Large.
I will get you one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, we go down to the Hall of Fame, and that was the year. Now, Gwen Matthews' first solo African-American single artist ever inducted over the 38 years that the Hall's been there. So that was a pretty big deal. But we went in there. It was also the first year that they moved all of the Prince stuff down from Henderson. So I walk in, and John had the curator of the display. He goes, "Hey, I want you to meet Neal." He said, "You know that CD you were, yeah, that was really good." He said, "Well, you guys talk." Anyway, Joel looks at the CD and loved the color purple that was on it. Okay. And he goes, "That belongs in my display." No problem. So, yeah, here we are, 2 weeks, you can't even buy the thing in the stores. And we're on display at the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame. I was pretty chuffed. But, yeah. So, if you ever go down there, look in the Prince display and you'll see a beautiful purple-colored CD called The Minnesota Project, Legends, Heroes, Ghosts, and Gangsters. And that's ours.
That's it right there. Or go to the Facebook page again, folks, when you get a chance, the Minnesota Music History channel. And Neal Bond is the author of that. It is a fabulous thing to do. I just you made me think about New Ulm, and I thought about the Gibbon Ballroom. I thought about, we mentioned the Maple Lake Pavilion. Mm-hmm. The ballrooms, man, they were a big, Duluth had a ballroom. Didn't they have a big ballroom up there?
Well,
maybe Maple Lake had the pavilion, as I mentioned.
Medina.
Maple Lake, yeah.
Medina, but there were a lot of them.
I think Duluth was mainly the Armory.
Okay.
And the biggest crowd ever at the Duluth Armory was Frankie Yankovic and his Yanks. I know that from a janitor up there. We used to bring the litter and pepper fog, and it was quite the place.
Yeah. So now let me ask you this. This is going to be probably the toughest question of all. You're going to promote a concert, and I'm really curious, who are the 3 acts you would put on stage? Don't have to, alive or dead. But who would you like to see perform? You want to get back to me in about a month, or can you? That's a tough thing to think of.
I will say this: if you have not seen Gwen Matthews perform, you have to go out and catch her act. She's got an unbelievable vocal range, and you know what? No matter who the 2 opening act or the 2 closing acts would be, Glenn would be my opening act. Another spectacular act, somebody that I'd never heard of, but man, I'll tell you, this guy can play guitar like you can't believe. When Joel King ran Prince Fest down in New Ulm, this guy by the name of Johnny Rogers. You ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Neither had I. I'll tell you what. We were talking about Hendrix playing with his tongue, and he didn't light the guitar on fire. He didn't do that. But he's constantly spectacular showman, and he did Prince's material. I mean, he does everybody, but he's a great entertainer too. But I think he's from Chicago, and nobody up here has really ever heard of him, but very good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who would headline for you?
The Beatles.
Oh, sure.
Wow.
And were you got here in '65? You said. Were you here in time to see them at Met Center?
I came up the weekend, we were staying at the Cap Towers Hotel. 15 years old. My brother and I shared a room. My parents. So guess what was happening in town the weekend we came?
Oh, the Beatles.
The Beatles.
What a time.
And I thought, well, there's no way I'll ever get tickets to go see it. But boy, there were all kinds of girls.
Yeah.
So we were
And you're
we were
15.
cruising the place, going, ho ho.
No kidding.
But no, I didn't get to see that show. But you know, it would have been just a bunch of girls.
Screaming. Because it sounds like this. Everything I've read and heard, and you know better than I do, the sound apparently was not good, which makes sense at the Met and Mermet Stadium.
I was on the road with a band called the Shuffle Brothers, just duo, you know, playing Holiday Inn circuit. So we're playing in Peoria, Illinois. This mom comes up. I've got tickets to go see Andy Gibb. Do you guys want to come? I'm going, well, he's a Bee Gee brother,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, he was hot for a while.
Next to the Beatles. We love you, Andy. And that's all I'm hearing. Finally, I went, I need to go to the bar. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a reason the Beatles stopped performing live. It's because they
You couldn't hear the music.
couldn't hear themselves. I mean, back then they were sometimes they were playing over the stadium's PA, and that PA is not like what we have today, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
so they stopped performing because of that.
It's
And
good for the seventh inning stretch, and that's
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
and the other reason, it's because of all the screams.
I remember Andy Gibb opening up for Neal Sedaka. Saw him one time. Andy
Oh,
Gibb
wow.
was the opening act when he was, I think, dating
boy.
Victoria Principal at the time. For all the old Dallas fans.
Yeah.
Well, Neal, if I go to the Facebook page, I can find out where your band's going to be too as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Great.
it's simply the Minnesota Music History Channel on Facebook, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I really enjoy looking at it. I really appreciate you coming in today. It's great talking to you. I hope we do it again because I think you could go for quite a while. In the meantime, look forward to catching that movie on YouTube.
Cool. I think you really like it. It's put a lot of work into it, and it's we've go through the Great Northfield, Minnesota raid.
Oh, do you on that one?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
that song's called "One Field North Too Far."
Wow.
Neal Bond, thank you very much for coming in on my first concert here. And again, I remind folks you can get it wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, at talknorth.com. We have a ton of podcasts on there that you can go to as well. AquariusHomeservices.com makes it possible here from the AquariusHomeservices.com studios. Also, our good friends at Star.Bank. That's their website. Check it out. Really great people, local people, family run still to this day. And it's just a cool place to do all your banking and financing as well. Again, a reminder, go to the Minnesota Music History Channel, and there's something that's going to catch your attention today or tomorrow, whenever you get that done. And then once you're on it, you'll probably do it again tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. Davide, always great to see you. Appreciate your time here putting all this together.
Sure.
And Dave Lee here, and we'll see you next week on my first concert.